Are you looking for a nice 3D animation like this, but have no idea what to do? Well, no worries, this is a full course which will guide you how you can use Midjourney and create amazing 3D animations using softwares like Adobe Photoshop and After Effects. So let's get right to our video, and the very first thing we need is an active Midjourney subscription. So if we search Midjourney on Google and open up the first link we have here, if I go to manage sub, and as you can see I have the basic plan active at the moment, but you can go with standard or pro plan. And the first thing we need to do before we start generating our artworks, we need to set this up. So I'm gonna write /settings, and you can have a look at what my settings are. We're using the latest model, which is 5.2. It is also selected by default. And then the next and very important part we have is /imagine, which we will be using to generate our artwork. And let us try generating something first of all. So what we need is a samurai with a sword in his hand, and we need him to be looking up the mountains. And now that we have our prompt ready, we need to make sure our artwork comes in our aspect ratio to be 16:9, and for that we have this prompt which is --AR, and then we write our aspect ratio like 16:9, and if I press enter, our art will start generating. Okay, if we open them up, we can see these are some real nice looking artworks, especially the bottom right one and the first. I think all in all, they all look really beautiful and stunning. We could animate that volcano in the background, maybe make the birds fly, and in this one as well, we could make the volcano fire animations. We could animate the samurai, and we could do all sorts of things on this one. And let's try generating some more images. Like for example, we would write something, maybe some soldiers who have just been to a battlefield. I think that sounds nice. We would like to keep it anime or manga style, and we want to keep the aspect ratio 16:9 as well. So we're gonna generate this art, and let's see what this comes up with. And now we have art which is similar to what we needed. We have some soldiers overlooking sort of a battlefield, especially in the bottom left. You can clearly see that these soldiers are tired and they have just been to like some sort of a war or something, and these also look good. We could certainly use this in our animations. Like we could take these clouds out and we could put them somewhere else in other artworks. So that is all for what we need. We're gonna use these images. And if you come back to Midjourney, you can go to the home page, and here you can have a look at all the artworks which you have generated previously. You can have a look at them, or you can also copy the prompt from this art. Like if you click this copy and prompt, then you have the prompt which is used to generate this artwork. And you can do the same for arts generated by other people. If you come to the Explore page, you can see artworks generated by a lot of different artists and other people who are using Midjourney. And if you open any artwork, you can do the same. You can copy their prompt and you can try generating them. Like if you come here, you have 4 reference images, and then they have sort of a prompt which is used to create that artwork. So for these buttons here, we have U1 to 4, and then we have V1 to 4, which basically means upscaling for U and variations for V. So if we would like different variations of one of these images, we would select the number with V. And if we want to upscale that image, we would select U for that number. So for these, I think we're gonna go with the 4th image here. So let's try upscaling the 4th image. And if we tap on that button, you will have a very upscaled and high resolution image, just like that. So you can download that and save it in your computer. So I'm gonna save the image. If we would like different variations, we can also choose, for example, the 2 version here looks good. We could also do more variations of that and see how they come up. And here we have some more nice looking images. So let's download all of our images which we need for our animations. And the next important thing we have is Photoshop. We need to separate out our layers so we can animate them, and I'm gonna show you exactly how we do that. So for Photoshop, there are some things you need to know. Although you don't have to be an expert in this, but there are several tools which you should know and have at least basic level of understanding of how they work. The first one we have is the quick selection tool, which you can use to select around an object by dragging the mouse button just like that. And you can also remove a selection by holding the Alt key. And up next we have lasso tool, which works in a similar pattern, but instead of dragging the mouse, you draw a pattern or a path which will be selected, simply like that. And Apart from that, there are some very basic tools like brush. You have to be able to know when to brush and how to use the brush tool. And of course, the eraser tool. There is nothing else which you need to worry about. That is all we will be needing. So for example, we have this image and we would like to take apart our character along with this rock, and we want to save it in a separate layer. So we would use this lasso tool and we would select upon the path or create a path along the lines of the character and the rock, just like how I am doing here. You need to make sure you get all the edges properly. Make sure you don't leave anything behind. Select the character and the sword. You can zoom in by tapping the Alt and then using the middle mouse button, just like that. Just trying to make sure all the edges are covered along with the sword. And if you mistakenly click somewhere and your path has broken, you can also hold the Alt key and then click to start selecting a path which you don't want. For example, we have this background below the character and we don't want that. So we're simply gonna select all the areas of that path. And once you are done with that, it will be removed from our selection. And then we can continue selecting all the other areas which we do need. And if you select something which is unnecessary. So now that we have selected our rock and our character, simply right click anywhere and select the feather option. So we have some sort of smooth edges. We're not gonna keep the value too high like 2. Let's keep it around 0.1 or 0.2, and then by tapping the Ctrl+J, we will duplicate that layer. And if we disable this background, we have our character ready for animation. So we're gonna simply save that. I'm gonna save it as the character, and we can save the background. But before that, we need to select our character. And this time we're gonna use the quick selection tool. We can increase the size by holding the Alt key and dragging the right mouse button. Move our mouse around and it will only select our character and the rock. And now if we come back to our original layer, we can right click here and select content aware fill. And what basically this will do, this will draw over that area so our character is removed from the background. And now we can save this layer as the background. Alright, we are ready for our animations. But before that, we do need our clouds. So we're gonna use one more image. And that will be our clouds image. So we're gonna select this. If you would like, you can also select the characters from this image, like with quick selection tool. You can simply drag your mouse around and that will select all the areas which you need. We don't need all of that, so we're gonna deselect that. Also this. And by pressing L, I'm gonna use the lasso tool again here to select the rocks and everything which is concerning our character. And I'm also going to select all the other areas like this and also this character. Now I'm going to remove the areas we don't need, like this background here between his legs. And I do need his weapons, so I'm going to select that up. Again, just removing the background which we don't need and is unnecessary here. And now that we have our character, we can save them in another layer. We can say soldiers. And this time we need some clouds from this. So what we need basically from this image are our clouds. So we're gonna select our clouds here. This time we're gonna use the quick selection tool here. And I'm gonna select our clouds. You don't have to worry about picking every minute little detail. So we can also use lasso tool to make sure our selection includes most of the parts of that cloud which we need. We're also gonna select some from the left side. I'm only gonna select the darker clouds because our original background has sort of like a dark themed atmosphere. So we wanna keep that. And now I'm gonna feather. And this time we're gonna have a higher value like around 3. So make sure you choose the value which is suitable for your needs. Like here we have smooth edges on the clouds. So I'm gonna save that as clouds. And now we're ready for animation. And the next tool which we will be using for our 3D animation is Adobe After Effects. And in this tool, there are not many things which you need to know, as I will be showing you everything you need in this tutorial. So firstly, let's drag in our files. I'll start with the background and all the other layers which we have created in Photoshop. So I can drag it into our composition like that. Now we need to add them into their own separate compositions. So I will do that by right clicking on the layer and then clicking on this pre-compose button. Make sure to select move all attributes into the new composition so we can animate them later on separately. And gonna do the same thing for all of them. Make sure you select each layer and put them into their own separate compositions. And then what we need to do, we need to add a new camera. And for that, we're gonna use the one node camera, as the two node camera moves from a point, but we want to move from all the directions, top, bottom, left and right instead of a point. So we're gonna select one node camera, and here for the preset, we're gonna use the 50mm and then press OK. We also wanna increase our length of the composition, so we can do composition settings and increase it for maybe 8 seconds if that is how much you would like to animate. And we want to make our layers 3D, so we're gonna select them all and tap on this icon just like that. And we want to make our background further away in the back, so we will do something like this. We'll drag all the way back with the Z index, then we will open up our scale and then scale it back up like that. You could position it around however you would like. I'm gonna position mine around here so it looks nice and clean. And then we want to add our camera. Then we will click on the position for P key, and then we can see how that moves if we change this attribute. And we want to create the parallax effect here again for our character, so we're gonna position him just like that with the Z index. And then we're gonna upscale it just about this. If we have a look, we had the exact same position right now, so it looks good. Or we could scale it down to match our original image. And now if we move our camera, you will see the character moves a little slower as compared to our soldiers. So that creates a nice parallax effect. So now we're also gonna do the same thing for our clouds. We're simply gonna give it a nice parallax effect by dragging them down further in our scene by changing our Z position, just like that. And then we're gonna upscale it so it is filling up our scene just like that. And now if we have a look, and now if we change our position in our camera, we can have a look. You can see how nice that looks like. And we can even go one step further and change our keyframe to easy ease. You can also use F9 on the keyboard for that as shortcut. And if we let our animation play out, we can have a look. You can see how clear that looks and everything is just nice. But we can go ahead and add a lot of animations to that. For our clouds, we're gonna simply add something called slant. And if we drag it up here, we can add a nice effect where we can see our clouds moving. So if we add a keyframe from the beginning, if we go to about 8 seconds, we can add value something around the lines of 8 or maybe 9. And we can see a nice moving effect on the clouds. Up next, we can also animate our lava for this volcano thing. So we're gonna go into our background layer, and then we're gonna duplicate it. And now we have to mask out all the areas where there is any sort of fire. You don't have to worry about selecting everything. Just make sure you have selected the most important parts, which are covered in the smoke or maybe in the fire. Just create a path using the path selection tool. Again, we don't have to worry about covering every other corner, as that does not matter. And now that we have our path, we're simply gonna select our layer, click on the mask, and then open the mask. And where you see mask feather, simply give it a value of around 9 or maybe 10. And then search for something called turbulent displace in the effects panel. Then drag it onto our background layer, which we have just masked. For our size, we will keep the value around 36 and the amount to be around 16 or 17. Then we will add our keyframe from the beginning, and on the end we will give a keyframe of around 6 to give it a nice and smooth movement. If that is too much, you can lower down the amount to maybe around 10 and you will have a nice effect. To go one step further, you can duplicate this layer, change the blending mode to multiply, and then search for fractal noise. And here I'm gonna add my own preset, but you can create your own fractal noise if you wish to. If I just add it here, and if I change the colors to be similar to what we need, the red, the orange, and the yellow, and then I enable the layer, you can see how cool that looks animating. And then I lower the opacity of the layer to around 50%, and then I enable the layer, and you can see a nice cool effect on that layer. And we can also add something like birds. For that we have a footage. You can use any footage from YouTube or anywhere you would like. Of course, make sure it is a stock footage and has a green screen. And why a green screen is necessary, let me show you why. And here we have, here in effects, we're gonna search for something called key light. And if we drag it onto our layer and then click on the eyedropper next to the color, we can click on the green, and then boom, our background is gone, and we can use that footage perfectly in our background. We're gonna downscale them a little bit right around here. We will give it also a 3D touch, so we have our Z index and it will move along the camera as well. We're also gonna downscale it a little more and give it the position so it is nice and clean in the background, just like that. Now you might notice there are some green edges around the birds. How do we get rid of them? Well, we have an effect called tree tone. If you search for that and drag it onto our layer, we can change the colors, and we can change the mid-tones to be around blackish brown. I think that looks good. And now if we have a look, we have a nice animating birds layer into our footage. And last but not least, if you want to make the birds also similar color to the ones in the background, you can lower the opacity to about 50%, and they will look exactly like the other birds, so they all blend in with our scene perfectly well. And now that we are done with our animations, we can simply render our output by simply tapping on the Ctrl M button. And you can also come here on the file and then select export and add to Adobe Media Render Queue if you have Media Encoder, or you can simply tap on the add to render queue, which we have just done by using the keyboard shortcut. For the output module, we want to make sure we have QuickTime selected, and then you can choose any format. I prefer Apple ProRes 422 or 422 LT, they're both really good. And we have DNX HD, that is also a good quality. If you want to use that, you can use that as well. For now, we're just going to use Apple ProRes and click OK. And here is same thing, just simply click on OK. We don't want to change a lot of things here. And in the output too, you have to select a location where you want to store the file and then give it a name. After that, simply click on the render button and then you're good to go. But that was it for today's video. I really hope you enjoyed watching and took some value. Consider leaving a like and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.